This is episode 93 of the Rise Up podcast. We're a morning radio show hosted by Steve, Terese, and Tim on Family Life, a network of stations across New York and Pennsylvania. Our podcast is a weekly conversation that will help you think and grow in your faith. If you haven't already, subscribe today so you don't miss a single episode, and find out more about our show at familylife.org.
They're morning people because they love mornings and people. It's Rise Up with Steve, Terese, and Tim on Family Life.
There are some things that just take time, but it's always worth it.
All right. I am one who does not have the personality. And I look back throughout my life with this question. And I'm like, I prefer things done like soon, quick,
Right.
now, done.
Yeah.
I don't like to spend a lot. I didn't even like projects. You know, you have science projects or different things in school and you had to do it and it took time. I just didn't like that. I prefer the things like you have an assignment and you can get it done in a few minutes and it's done and let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
That's so when you ask the question, what takes time? And I know that spending time is worth it for the very few projects around the house, like putting together a bookshelf that you know, for me, that's like gargantuan and that took time. Or putting together a shed in the backyard. And you had
that's an actual building.
Right.
Have you done that?
I have done that.
Oh my goodness.
And looking
my
at
respect just went.
Well, but looking at directions, and those are frustrating for me.
Right.
Those
Tab
are-
A into point B.
Very frustrating.
Right.
Tabs,
But
no
they're
slots.
always worth it because when you're finished, you're like, wow,
Right.
look at that.
Huh.
But the number one thing I think about when I think spending or taking your time, and when you're going through it, you don't think about it much. But now on the other side of course, you never stop parenting. But now that our kids are, you know, married and over 30 and out of the house and all over the country, I think of like, wow, that took time from day one, bringing baby Laura home from the hospital and looking and go, what do we do now? You know, that whole thing. And then just going, you don't even think about it day by day, but those things take time. And time spending, you know, when you'd rather do something else, but it's like, oh, they want to have your attention. So you get down on the floor and you play with them.
Right.
Or you take them to the park and you play with them. And you could be doing 8 million other things, but you spend time. So that's what I think about most. And, you know, with both the kids, spending time when they were younger and even still spending time with them now when they're adults is really important. And those things take time, but they are worth it.
I wonder too, I mean, I know Will was into sports. I don't know about Laura, but those hours that you spend in the stands, on the sidelines.
Oh, sure.
I mean, the things going through your mind of like, oh, I could be doing this, I could be doing that. I'm always impressed with parents who go to so many sports things.
You know, it's funny because that Will was in sports and Laura rode horses. I know everything about sports, you know, as far as when Will was in different sports.
Sure.
I knew things about those sports. Laura rode horses. I knew nothing, still don't. I knew nothing about horse shows and everything. But what was cool about that, it made me, yes, I went to almost every practice that she went to, every, you know, show that they had. And I would sit in the stands going, I have no idea what's going on here. I think as long as she stays on the horse, that's good. If she falls up, but what was really good about that in retrospect, and I even felt at the time, it's like, that's good. I'm there not because I'm interested in the sport.
Right.
I'm interested in the person who's out there and just showing that support, not knowing a clue about what I was doing out there besides just going, hey, she's still on the horse. That's good.
I just read something about the relationship that parents have with their kids, and kids who have a close relationship with their parents who spend time with them, end up being more kind and more considerate adults. Like of all the things that we think we provide for our kids, you know, a good education, a nice neighborhood, you know, the best clothes, the thing that really creates character in them is the time you spend with them.
Wow. And I guess you can't start too early because I'm wanting to give the same answer as you, Steve, because it's only 2 years that my wife and I have had our little girl just turned 2, and she's doing, this is my favorite thing. It's new and it's melts my heart every single time. I'll be doing something like washing the dishes or whatever, and she'll come up beside me and reach up and grab my hand and pull it down to her level and then pull me over. She'll like be like, she'll babble something at me and pull me over towards her toys. It's like, oh, my heart. Sometimes I'm actually like, I can. No, I really, really can. I can make this time right now. And you just said, Steve, getting on the floor and playing with them like at that young age, that's as far as I am in what time looks like spent with my daughter right now, having a 2-year-old, but also kind of trying to be aware of, and I'm saying this to remind myself of it, aware of how early they learn so much and are watching things and are paying attention to how you pay attention to them, and how, like this research I've seen, really disturbing stuff about little kids observing their parents on their phones.
Yeah.
This is my generation's challenge, to be like, it doesn't matter if they're 2 years old. They know that the iPhone has your attention and not them.
Right.
So being like, that doesn't get my time right now. If you're looking at me, or if we're in the car together, I don't want to have a podcast on it. I want to have, because you're going to be wanting to tell me about the tractor you just saw go down the road. And I want to be there for that. Yeah. So I'm saying this also to like call myself to that standard, because there are times where I do let that precious time escape, and I don't want to do that. I'm sure that we all are always going to have regrets about that and think you could have done better, but that's what I'm trying to remind myself right now.
Yeah.
You just pushed a button right there, because it's my generation, we didn't have the smartphones then.
Yeah.
I'm thankful, because I think I'd be tempted to do the same thing these days. I would probably do that. But when I drive by a playground now and I see parents and the kids are playing and the parents are sitting on the bench looking at their, and I'm like, what are you doing? But I'm like, but there for the grace of God go I. I would have probably been tempted, if not done the same thing. So yeah, that's a tough challenge.
It was a lot harder to like wheel your whole TV set out there when they were in the
very
with the bunny ears on top, and
then the extension cords were so long down to the park. Yeah.
When I recall times in my life where I've spent a lot of time on something, I'm drawn to like actual Bible studies, like a 13-week study with a group of ladies, or like Healing Journey. What is that? 29 weeks. Yeah. And I look back and I think, I did that? Like, that's crazy. But the thing is the discipline that comes from doing that over that long of time, I gained insight and understanding of God that I don't think I could have gotten in any other way, that you don't get by doing and I love the little daily things, on the apps and things like that, but you don't get the depth from that. Those are good reminders, but they're not the same as really getting in the weeds, and having those moments with God. I wish I was a person who prayed a long time, because I'm sure it's fruitful. I really struggle, and it's an ongoing process that I'm having with the Lord of keep my mind on you, because even if I'm on my knees, even if I'm in the dark, even if my mind will just go to, I don't have the mental discipline, and I'm working on that. Yeah. But the thing, if I take it away from those faith-based things, that has frustrated me for the past 3 years is sourdough bread. And I know we've talked about my sourdough bread, and I've had several different starters, some really old starters, some good starters. I had a sweet neighbor who helped me, get my first loaf, and I've made some successful loaves. I do also have a flop loaf that's in the freezer waiting to be made into stuffing, because you don't waste it when you've spent that much time. But sourdough is one of those weird things that a friend of mine I gave some starter to recently was like, okay, how long do I? And I was like, yeah, see, that's the thing. It's completely time-based, but it's also temperature-based and the humidity of your house based. And and so you got to kind of go with your gut on it, and there have been times where I've been like, you know what, just throw more time at it. And I've let the loaf sit for a ridiculous amount of time, and then it gets inedibly sour. And so it's this weird balance. And I think what that reminds me of is God's timing. The time that it takes one person to pray and find a spouse is different than what it takes somebody else to pray and find a spouse. It depends on things like your environment, your circumstances, what God's plan is. The time that it takes you to grow to a certain spiritual understanding is going to be different than somebody else. The time it takes you to become a prayer warrior is going to be some people are just gifted in that way. And it doesn't make any good for me to be jealous of them or to have any ill feelings toward them, because I have to go on my own journey with the Lord and say, okay, God, I know you want me to be a strong prayer. You want me to be in fellowship with you. So help me with that, and everything takes time. But time is a construct that was made by God for our benefit. Before creation, there was no time.
Sure,
there was
right.
just eternity. But our human brains couldn't function without day and night and days and weeks and months. And so God gave us time because we had to have it, which is funny because it's something that frustrates us, but we literally couldn't function without it. And so a time is one of those things that you have to surrender to God. The time it takes you to learn about horses or to make sourdough bread or finally understand that you need to put your phone down is going to be different, but God is in control of that time, and he wants to hear about all of those challenges and just have you surrender it. He wants every moment to be a moment where you come to him and you say, Lord, this is your time.
Yes.
And if you go outside of God's time of understanding, we could become a flop loaf. Because we're not that. And we've also learned that man, or in this case, woman, does not live by sourdough bread alone.
That's true.
No, there's also stuffing.
But by the word of God.
Right.
Amen.
Reminding you that God is in charge today and every day. It's Rise Up with Steve, Terese, and Tim on Family Life.
This would have to be the biggest baking month of the year. I mean, Terese, do you do
I'm gonna master sourdough like faithfully. I can get it now and then, but I'm still working on the art of every single time.
Tim, you're a baker too. I mean, do you guys do bread?
I don't. I don't touch baking, but my wife does, and yes, she does bread. Yes, she does. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I only do certain bread, and I don't even give the recipes. Well, it's a sum.
Oh boy.
For the bread.
Oh boy. Hold on. All right. Well, no. Let's hear them out. Might actually be talking about baking bread.
Just what I know from the history of Steve, this is not going to end well.
Well, it's
Now,
I don't share these bread recipes with everybody. It's mainly on a need to know basis. Is what
do they call the end of the bread? Is that the heel? I feel like.
Feel free to stick around a while. We love it when you're here. This is Rise Up with Steve, Terese, and Tim on Family Life.
God, please help me, I whispered. Show me that you're here, God. Please help me. You know, a while back, I had heard that Matthew Perry from the TV show Friends had written this memoir, and he gave this account of this encounter with God. I started to cry. I mean, I really started to cry, that shoulders shaking, kind of uncontrollable weeping. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because for the first time in my life, I felt okay. I felt safe, taken care of. Decades of struggling with God and wrestling with life and sadness, all was being washed away like a river of pain gone into oblivion. I'd been in the presence of God. I was certain of it. And this time I'd prayed for the right thing. Help. Everything was different now. I stayed sober for 2 years based solely on that moment. God had shown me a sliver of what life could be. He'd saved me that day, and for all days, no matter what, he had turned me into a seeker, not only of sobriety and truth, but also of him.
Wow. Wow.
And then when the news came this weekend that Matthew Perry had died, you know, and everybody kind of likes to play Monday morning quarterback. They look back on his social media, and there were some things over the past couple weeks that were well, that was weird. And then I thought, shame on me, because how many times have I looked at someone a fellow Christian, and I go, they're good. They're good.
Yeah.
They're good. They don't need me to step in. Nope. They got Jesus. They're good. But God didn't design a world where even the saved live on their own. He designed us to be able to help one another. And so if you see a friend who's got a couple warning signs, even if they're a Christian, just reach out to them. Just be a friend. Just say, I'll be there for you.
Thanks for making us part of your morning routine. It's Rise Up with Steve, Terese, and Tim on Family Life.
It's a November morning. You're minding your own business when all of a sudden you start feeling thankful.
But it's not the fourth Thursday of the month, and there's no turkey in sight. What do you do with this spontaneous gratitude welling up like gravy in your soul?
You need to celebrate. Give thanksing.
Give Thanksing is the holiday in your hearts that has nothing to do with days off, department store deals, or even football.
You decide when Give Thanksing is, not greeting card companies and governments.
It's easy to honor Give Thanksing. Just be thankful. By yourself, with a cat,
Oh, thanks.
at a stop sign, or in a stopped elevator.
Wow, I'm so thankful.
Second floor, please.
And since Give Thanksing is a made-up holiday, there's no need for the divisive foods of tradition. Never cared for green bean casserole? No problem. Jelly from a can isn't your thing? It's not a Give Thanksing thing either.
Give Thanksing, the turkey-free way to give thanks. Yes, you can still have turkey on Thanksgiving.